we meet the patients on the sharp end of the economic war on Cuba, and the doctors fighting to keep them alive. Cubans are living through a devastating economic crisis. Mounting piles of rubbish, daily power cuts, and food and water shortages have become the norm. In the past few years, well over 1 million people have left the country. No sector has been harder hit than public health. Until a few years ago, health outcomes were similar to European countries. The average Cuban could expect to live to 78. But the system is now a shadow of its former self.
¿Estás nervioso? ¿No? 130 conciencia. Un poquitico antes.
Beverly is 17 years old. She has leukemia and has just finished her latest round of chemotherapy.
La paciente Beverly. Una hemoglobina 11,2, plaquetas 175.000, leuco 5.3.
So far, she's had 7 rounds. This time, a key drug was missing.
El efecto que se puede tener cuando uno tiene los quimioterápicos que realmente necesita cada paciente pueden ser desde la recaída de la enfermedad hasta que se hagan refractarios, o sea, que no vuelvan a responder más nunca a las quimioterapias.
The lack of resources to treat patients has become a constant challenge, and missing medicine is a daily problem.
En los 2 años últimos se ha ido agravando. Tenemos los casos de pacientes que al no tener un soporte transfusional, pues fallecen. Y otros sí fue debido a las escaseces. Al no tener los medicamentos que ellos requieren en el momento que los requieren, es duro. Porque uno trabaja con la premisa, con la única forma de lograr recuperar a un niño de una enfermedad maligna. Y dar la expectativa de vida a esos padres, darle una esperanza a sus padres, sabiendo que de 9 de cada 10 niños no logran una respuesta, y eso se perdió totalmente. Estos son unos medicamentos que recibimos como donación.
5 years ago, the Ministry of Public Health supplied all the drugs this hospital needed. Now, it relies on donations, and doctors are even turning to the black market.
Buscamos en redes sociales o lo que sea, sabemos que está disponible y está en el país, y preguntamos precios, y más o menos entre todos nos ponemos de acuerdo y accedemos al medicamento.
But Lucelia's salary is the equivalent of just $14 a month. Even that is more than most of her patients and their families make.
¿Cómo se llama el medicamento que necesita?
Citosal.
¿Cómo ustedes van a conseguir eso?
Eso es por el Facebook mismo, pero es imposible, no puedo. Me estaban pidiendo aquí 30.000 pesos por un grupo.
¿Y eso sería lo suficiente para una sesión de quimioterapia?
No, si ella lleva 24.
Cubans are the target of the longest economic war in modern history.
By cutting off trade, by cutting off our diplomatic relations as we have, we will quarantine this regime so that the people of Cuba themselves will take care of Mr. Castro.
This State Department document from 65 years ago sketched out a plan that's still in play today. Policy should deny money and supplies to Cuba to bring about hunger, desperation, and overthrow of government. The hand of the US should remain inconspicuous. Since then, the United Nations says the sanctions have cost the country $130 billion. A decade ago, President Barack Obama softened the embargo.
It does not serve America's interests or the Cuban people to try to push Cuba towards collapse.
But it didn't last long. The historic opening was bulldozed.
I am canceling the last administration's completely one-sided deal with Cuba.
President Donald Trump introduced a battery of so-called maximum pressure sanctions. Some economists say that on top of the embargo, they cost the country billions of extra dollars a year. The budget to import medicine and equipment today is less than a third of what it was. and pharmacy shelves are bare.
La entrada de los medicamentos tenían una distribución de 10 días y ahora la distribución es una vez al mes. Hay un déficit del 70% de los medicamentos.
The embargo has a carve-out for medicine and medical equipment. But evidence reviewed by Al Jazeera shows that in practice, medical suppliers are refusing to sell. Following the Trump sanctions, pharma giant Eli Lilly stopped selling insulin to Cuba. And major US biotech firms Promega and New England Biolabs say the Treasury Department prohibits them from selling to the island. Since Cuban-American Marco Rubio has been Secretary of State, the sanctions have been ratcheted up further.
All right.
For years, he's denied that they hit the Cuban people.
So there's no blockade on medicine. We sell the medicine. And you can donate medicine, unlimited amounts under U.S. law. If there's a blockade on medicine, it's the regime's blockade.
But Cubans working in healthcare say otherwise.
Esas sanciones para el régimen, las sanciones son para nosotros. Es el niño que no tiene la culpa de nada, ni de haber nacido en un sistema comunista o no comunista. El niño no tiene la culpa.
For 2 years, a tumour has been growing in Yudianis's jaw. She and her brother have travelled for 3 hours to reach the capital. They're going to the country's biggest hospital, where she has an appointment with Cuba's top facial surgeon.
Venga, señora, venga usted. Vamos a quitarle el vendaje, movilizamos drenaje. Muy bien, quedó muy bien todo.
Guillermo used to perform hundreds of operations a year.
Yo quiero verla dentro de un mes para la biopsia.
He now spends more time telling his patients they have to wait.
No se preocupe, que aquí todos los pacientes lo vemos con el tiempo que requieren. A ver, joven. Oye, déjeme saludarlo, que no lo he saludado. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Nosotros habíamos hablado de la posibilidad de una reconstrucción personalizada. Es lo ideal, ¿no? El objetivo es que usted se vaya con la reconstrucción para que estéticamente y funcionalmente usted quede correctamente. Ahora, ¿qué ocurre? Hicimos la gestión, el tumor sigue creciendo, no tengo respuesta de la reconstrucción.
Without the tailor-made prosthesis, Guillermo can only offer Yudianis a substandard alternative. It's a longer operation that could deform her face.
Y hemos tenido que tomar la variante que no quisiéramos, pero si ustedes consiguieran, y estamos de acuerdo, reconstruirte con, quitarte el cemento y ponerte una placa de reconstrucción. ¿Están de acuerdo?
La primera no puede ser, porque no...
La primera no puede ser. Ya, mi amor, ya. Tranquila, tranquila.
Cuba can't afford to import the personalized titanium prostheses that patients need. So 10 years ago, it began making its own, after purchasing this $1 million 3D printer from a German company.
Vino el fabricante a instalarla acá, nos dio preparación básica de operación y se hicieron muchas pruebas de distintos prótesis dentales e implantes óseos.
But unfortunately, when things were beginning to get rolling, the equipment started breaking down. Initially, they thought of sending a technician to come to work with us to fix it. And then suddenly we received an email saying they couldn't comply with our request for help.
The company's vice president told them, "We are not allowed to send our staff to Cuba. This has to do with US sanctions."
Nobody imagined this because, in fact, we selected this company because it didn't have US components.
The printer is still out of action, leaving surgeons like Guillermo without answers for his patients.
Si tuviéramos la impresión aquí, en un día la máquina puede imprimir una reconstrucción grande. El tumor sigue creciendo y no es lo mismo operar un paciente que viene con un tumor 2, 3 centímetros, 4 centímetros, 5 centímetros, a operar un paciente que por la larga evolución tiene ya un tumor que compromete casi todo su hueso.
For many years, despite all the attacks of the U.S. against Cuba, if one thing shone out, it was public health. But this idea is subversive, and they would like to erode that. We're fighting to keep high-quality medicine to the reach of the people, but it's very difficult.
Who's winning that fight?
I think we're struggling.
Between chemotherapy sessions, Mevely returns to her hometown, 200 kilometers from the capital. It's the weekend, and friends and family are visiting Mevely, her sister, and her mother.
Hace unos años empecé con unos dolores en la columna. Me acosté bien y después cuando me fui a levantar no me podía parar de la cama. No me podía mover así porque me dolía mucho, mucho. Ya después, más para adelante, los dolores ya no eran nada más en la columna. Y se me empezaron a inflamar las glándulas aquí abajo.
Llegamos al pediátrico de Matanza, le vuelven a hacer análisis y ya en una hora ya tenían el diagnóstico de Miguel, lo que tenía una leucemia. Eso fue un choque.
Miguel, aquí una ropita tuya, ¿por qué no la llevas para tu cuarto? Si no te la vas a llevar.
Ella tiene algo que es muy fuerte. Y el deseo de no morir es la que le da esa fuerza. Hay momentos que sí se cae, porque hay momentos que son muy fuertes, hay momentos en los que ella se siente mal, pero ya después tú la ves, ella como que retoma esa fuerza y sí, entonces continúa.
Cada vez que me dicen, Miguel está en el salón en procederes, que es para ponerle catéter, para hacerle medulograma, punción lumbar, yo estoy afuera muriéndome. Y ella me dice, ay, mamá, si eso es lo mejor que me pasa a mí, porque no siento nada, me ponen la anestesia, no siento nada.
Yo le digo a mi mamá, ay, cuando salgamos, vamos a hacer algo, y yo, vamos a hacer un restaurante, jodiendo con ella esas cosas. Hacer algo nosotras.
Since 2019, the US has sanctioned oil tankers delivering fuel to Cuba. There's little gas and electricity, so the family's having to cook with charcoal.
Aquí es días enteros sin corriente. Días, te lo ponen una hora y media, vaya si acaso 2 horas. Ayer nos las pusieron como a las 5 y algo de la tarde y la quitaron hoy a las 8 de la mañana. Pero eso es un milagro.
Power cuts aren't their only problem. To find medicine for the chemotherapy's side effects, they have to hustle. The local state pharmacy is out of affordable drugs. Her family buys what they can on Cuba's online black market.
Y yo por un pomito así de nicotina y suspensión tuve que pagar 1.800 pesos.
A mí me pagan una chequera después que murió el padre de Miguel de 1.200 pesos. No hemos tenido que deshacer de cosas para poder solventar todo eso. Nunca pensé que la salud aquí en Cuba iba a llegar a ese extremo. A ese extremo.
Normalmente le llamamos el cementerio de equipo porque muchos van a estar un largo periodo de tiempo almacenados por la escasez de piezas de repuesto.
With the country out of cash, Dariel says it's getting harder and harder to keep machines running.
Lo que hacemos es recuperar de los ventiladores que entraron por una rotura, sacarle las piezas para poder recuperar otro, porque la pieza hoy la firma hoy no nos vende ya la pieza por una deuda que tenemos con ellos.
The graveyard is deep underground. Upstairs, Dariel and his colleagues make do with what they've got.
Oh, ya.
Eso es de la década del 70. La pieza ya el proveedor dijo que no la fabricaba más. Pero anteriormente había un modelo inglés que era de 1958 y yo lo reparaba. A veces hay piezas, otras veces no. El canibaleo no me gusta, pero a veces es necesario.
En La Habana, de 40 ventiladores, según un inventario que se realizó, también tenemos 12 funcionando. A veces nace un niño en un hospital, el equipo se rompe y hay que tratar de hacerlo todo en un mínimo tiempo, tratar de buscar la solución, venir aquí al taller, sacar una tarjeta de alguno que esté paralizado, que se sepa que es esa tarjeta, para tratar de reparar otro.
¿Usted considera que está salvando vidas?
Sí.
En estos momentos esta es la única máquina que tengo en el hospital que me garantiza operar pacientes de 0 a 18 años. Tengo 2 iguales, pero están sin funcionar. Se me rompieron hace 2 o 3 días.
¿Qué pasa si esto se rompe hoy?
Cruzar los dedos, que no pase, ni lo menciones.
Alioth says doctors at this hospital used to perform over 10,000 operations a year. Last year, they managed just 2,000.
¿Tu trabajo te gusta más o menos que antes?
Me gusta menos. Me gusta mucho menos. Yo me he entrenado, yo he estudiado, yo he hecho muchas cosas para resolverle el problema a los niños. Y yo no puedo, me siento desarmado. Y eso te va lacerando, la salud mental te la compromete. Esa es una de las razones por cual muchos médicos han migrado. En mi plantilla de anestesiólogos son 13 anestesiólogos y en estos momentos somos 4 nada más. ¿Cuánto gana un médico en Cuba? En estos momentos un especialista en cualquier especialidad de la medicina gana 5.600.
¿Y puede vivir con eso?
No, definitivamente no. Hay que hacer magia.
Alioth is due to anaesthetize this newborn, Emily, who needs an operation to correct a dangerous malformation. She and her mother, Milena, have been waiting for a working machine.
Cuando ya pensábamos que iba a ser lunes o martes, se desconectó el sistema eléctrico nacional.
Normalmente los circuitos de los hospitales se protegen. Cuando la quitan es porque pasó algo.
After 2 long days without power, the light in Cuba flickers back on.
Ya hoy tenemos agua, tenemos luz, Dios mediante, durante toda la operación. ¿Viste a tu chiquitica?
Sí, bebé.
Todo salió bien, ¿no? Como tú la ves, pero no llores. Si ya está, ya lo malo salió. ¿No viste? Esas son las cosas que te alimentan el espíritu, te permiten seguir trabajando todos los días a pesar de las dificultades. Porque el ver un niño recuperado, una madre contenta, una familia contenta, que todo salió bien, eso no tiene precio. De hecho, eso es lo único que me reconforta en mi trabajo.
Most Cuban drugs are domestically produced. Ever since the 1980s, the state has invested heavily in biotech. But in recent years, production has plummeted. Scientists say it's now harder than ever to import raw materials and high-tech machines.
Cuando nosotros identificamos una compañía que quiere negociar con Cuba, tiempo después, 2 o 3 años después, siempre la compra una compañía norteamericana. Nosotros teníamos equipamiento que era la mecha en farmacia, por ejemplo, General Electric, norteamericano la compró.
¿Pero puedes comprar de General Electric?
No, hombre, no. Imposible. No es.
In Cuba, you need almost a year to have reagents because you have to buy it in a third country. You have to invest 2 or 3 times the amount of money that was supposed to be costing if you are able to buy these reagents or equipment in the US.
Even European, Latin American and Asian suppliers are hounded down.
Yo estaba en la oficina del director, estamos conversando y de pronto entra un fax de la compañía de engineering diciendo que si nosotros queríamos adquirir piezas o componentes o intercambiar con ellos tenía que ser a través de un tercero. Ellos fueron amenazados por la oficina del Tesoro de Estados Unidos, los FAC, y que si vendían medicamentos a Cuba, los bioreactores a Cuba iban a ser usados para hacer armas biológicas. Por lo menos ese día yo me quedé en blanco.
Washington no longer accuses Cuba of making biological weapons. The State Department now claims, without evidence, that the island sponsors terrorism. The US Treasury has long fined banks billions of dollars for dealing with Cuba and other sanctioned countries. But the terror listing makes Cuba a pariah. The world's biggest banks now simply refuse to touch it.
Tenemos varios ejemplos de pagos grandes que hemos hecho que han sido retenidos en bancos intermediarios. Por eso muchas veces tenemos, digamos, la planta productiva parada 2-3 meses esperando un insumo que falte.
Hold-ups can be deadly. During the pandemic, Cuba developed its own COVID vaccines. But production was set back 6 months. A European company that had supplied them for over 30 years abruptly pulled out.
Ya sabíamos lo que teníamos que hacer, pero no podíamos producir porque no teníamos todos los insumos para poder producir. Y eso nos atrasó. Y ese atraso nos costó vidas.
In a game of cat and mouse, these scientists have found unusual workarounds.
Montarse en un avión, pagar con una maleta, eso se ha hecho, eso es muy riesgoso, pero hay veces que no quedan más opciones, porque no podemos dejar trazas en los bancos.
It's a big day for Mevely. She's undergoing tests to see if the latest treatment has worked.
Es rojo, rojo, rojo. Esto es bueno. Y mira, incluso con células plasmáticas.
¿Cómo amanecemos? ¿Cómo está todo? Este ingreso ha sido diferente a los anteriores porque hay una particularidad. La médula de Mevely ya alcanzó el recorte. Así que mi amor, felicidades porque vamos venciendo un capítulo más. Falta mucho camino por recorrer, pero ya lo recorremos con un susto menos. ¿Está lista para la pelea, Mevely? Esa es la actitud.
Con Mevely estábamos tristes. Pensábamos que todo estaba perdido. Y entonces lograr una médula en M1 es solamente, es una victoria. Y al final, cuando te acuestas en la cama, haces el balance del día, dices, vale la pena. Creo que si volvieran a hacer, haría lo mismo, no podría hacer otra cosa.
Me gusta tratar a mis pacientes. Me gusta mi hospital. Si yo también me sumo a la ola de éxodo, ¿quién va a quedar? ¿Quién me va a darle una respuesta, un alivio a esos padres?
Mami, la médula estaba en M1.
Ay, mi vida. Qué bueno, mi amor. Qué alegría, mi vida. Estamos saliendo, mi vida.
Mevely has begun a new round of chemotherapy. But doctors say that to beat the cancer for good, she needs a bone marrow transplant. It's been 6 years since the last one was carried out in Cuba.
Hey folks, my name is MacKay, professor of law, and sorry I'm a little choked up just watching that. I'm sure a lot of us are. Thank you, I shall. I'll use my teacher voice. I'm going to be brief. There are people in this room that have been working in depth with Cuba for many years and doing really important work supporting this country. And I just think that what's clear to me, so recently I got an article in The Spectator. It took me a while to get to it, but I finally did. And thank you. I'm not saying it for recognition, but it was interesting the feedback I got from the article. First of all, there was a lot of it, overwhelmingly positive, right? So there are a lot of Canadians who want to know what they can do. There are a lot of people who see the pain that the people of Cuba and the injustice that they're experiencing, because of course this is all horrendous crimes against humanity, completely unjustified. There's absolutely no justification for what the United States is doing to strangling this country economically. So that was positive. But, you know, also I got some inbound responses too. It's very interesting because the recurring theme from them is, this is all the routine. And we hear this anytime there's a socialist country in the world that's being attacked by the United States, which is every socialist country, right? So we hear this in Venezuela all the time too. The problems with Venezuela economically are due to their socialist government. Problems with Cuba are due to their socialist government. And so I think that presentations like this, videos like this, documentaries like this are so incredibly important. And in our own interactions with the wider public, it's so important, I think, that we stress this idea that, first of all, the blockade is real, the impacts are real, the American government is trying to destroy Cuba's society and economy. You know, and so, I mean, I watched this and I thought immediately I want to show this to my students at Mohawk. I'm going to try and organize screenings. I'm sure I can work with the master faculty to do the same there and hold events. Because when we see the reality of the actual restrictions that are in fact in place, and the fact that Cuba was so incredible, that again, we all know about Cuba here, how innovative and resilient and creative these people, it's unbelievable. They really are an example to the world for how to deal positively and productively with adversity. Yeah, children are kids.
Sorry, I set you up for that.
It's hard to watch that. But what I just want to say is, I think we're winning the public battle on this in terms of sort of the crisis. And so, you know, what Igor's doing, what the Canada, the Cuba Friendship Society is doing, what Containers for Cuba, what all these organizations are doing is so incredibly important. And I know we all want to support that, and we need to support that. But I think hopefully we'll all also, in whatever way we can in our communities, have that political conversation as well. We also need to wage that political struggle, and we need to counter the media narrative. We need to counter the U.S. problem. So they lie. We know they lie. We know our own government lies. We have to keep up that struggle and that fight as well. And so I look forward to working with everyone in this room to continue to do that, finding out ways in our own spaces that we inhabit, whether our workplaces, social spaces, if we keep having those conversations and keep letting people know that the people of Cuba need our help. And so, yeah, I'm just so happy that the Canada-Cuban Friendship Association is active, and that the Labor Council is on board as well. I know in my own union, there's just an organization that started up with OPSEU. We just had our convention in Toronto, and there's an organization that specifically started up for OPSEU folks. So I think the more we network, the more we pull together, I think we're going to make a difference. So anyway, that's all I got. Like I said, the people here have way more experience on the issue than me, but thanks everyone so much for being here. Thanks for the organizing.
Miguel's here from Toronto, from the CCFA. We're going to let him speak first, just kind of give us an update on what's going on in Toronto. Maybe there's some ideas, there's some things that they're doing there that we can use here in Hamilton. And also, there's events up there too that maybe we can, it's not that far of a drive that we can come up and support. So, Miguel.
Okay. Well, I understand. I don't think I need a podium. I don't have any notes, but I'm very pleased to be here. Thanks to Igor for the intro. And on behalf of the CCFA of Toronto, the Canadian Cuban Friendship Association of Toronto, and our entire executive, we had a discussion in our executive. We wanted to send more people here today, but it is very busy times, and of course, organizations like your organization, like the CCFA in Toronto, like groups across the country in the umbrella organization of the Canadian Network on Cuba, the CNC. These are very, very busy days. And what's significant about it is, painfully aware of the difficulties that the Cuban people are enduring right now, and have been enduring, in fact, for more than 6 decades, but certainly the past several years after Trump came into office the first time and imposed additional sanctions and put Cuba on the terrorism list. And then Biden came and did nothing to remove those sanctions, and actually even added some more sanctions, and then Trump again, and not least of which, of course, over the past 4 months, the attack on Venezuela and pressuring Venezuela to end their trade with Cuba and oil, absolutely essential ingredient. Somebody pointed out to me that we talk about technology, we talk about this and that, but at the end of the day, nothing runs without energy. You have to have energy. Whether it's solar energy, renewable forms of energy, or fossil fuel-based energy, it's essential. You can't move goods to market, you can't maintain the power grid, you can't do anything. And then at the end of January, this executive order imposing, sorry about that. So, yes, but we all know about the hardships that the Cuban people are enduring, and it says a lot about the character of the Cuban people. The extent to which we can talk about the character of the whole nation, the whole people, to be able to endure. I was in Cuba in the early 90s during the special period. Things were awfully bad and difficult then. But it's fair to say that in fact, that circumstance has been eclipsed by the current situation. It is incredibly heartbreaking. And yet the Cuban people, not every last one, but the vast majority of the Cuban people are steadfast in their defense of their sovereignty, of their independence, but their right to choose their own destiny in the face of this pressure. So we know about all of that, but a lot of Canadians will say, yes, but what can we do here in Canada? Because the sanctions are in the US, we're not in the United States, we can't vote local, state, national elections in the US. What can we do? Well, you're proving, and what's happening right across the country, in fact, is that there's lots of things that we can do. One of them is material aid. And I'll just say, there's been hurricane relief campaigns, there's been all sorts of campaigns over the years to send solidarity, financial support to the Cuban Revolution and the Cuban people. But in the last 3 months alone, since the beginning of January, the CNC has received donations more than $200,000. This absolutely blows away any previous fundraising efforts, and it shows that we're not alone. And the vast majority of the Canadian people, many millions of whom have actually been to Cuba, who have met the Cuban people, who have experienced Cuban culture, Cuban music, Cuban beaches, but they have positive attitudes towards Cuba. They see the nightly news as well, and they know how vicious this attack is and how groundless it is. And they're opening up their checkbooks, their bank accounts, and so on, and donating, and including, not least, the trade union movement. It's really been striking. For the past few months, we've been getting checks from unions and federations of labor, not so much from the CLC itself, but that's not so surprising. The CLC is kind of an umbrella group, but it's the affiliates that are the most important, and then the locals, labor councils, and so on and so forth. But the donations have been flooding in, and we're using those funds to purchase solar generators to send to Cuba. This is a very important thing because even regular generators need fuel to put into them to power them. But these solar generators with solar panels are completely relying on renewable energy sources, and also to pay for the cost of containers, which is going way up as well. And a lot of it all of this is tied in with the blockade because even the insurance that has to be paid is much higher because Cuba's under these vicious unilateral sanctions. The other thing we can do is speak out as loudly and as frequently and as forcefully as we can. Through the media, through social media, but also the mainstream media, through letters to the editors, campaign. You know, I've always been historically kind of cynical, not cynical, skeptical about, you know, signing petitions, writing letters to the editor, how much of an impact does it have? But, you know, I think that it is showing that when there's enough letters that go in, and the letters to the editor at newspaper or whatever, the editorial staff, they start receiving these letters, they're almost forced to publish at least a few of them. And that in turn has an impact. In Toronto, last month, in the middle of, 3 weeks ago, we sent a delegation, we asked for a meeting with Julie Jurowitz, who's an MP from Davenport. And it was during constituency week, so she was actually off the ill, she was back in Toronto. And she met with about 9 or 10 of us. And we laid out the situation for Cuba and whatnot. And it's a typical runaround. Liberals are liberals. But those kinds of actions, including actions taken here, I see on the back of this form, which is a list of the local MPs here in the Hamilton area, and especially liberal backbenchers, to put pressure on them to visit their constituency offices or ask for meetings or send delegations and that sort of stuff. They start then feeling that heat, and then that gets transmitted through the caucus system to the cabinet. So even if the cabinet is not prepared to do anything, they think, well, we don't want to pick too many fights with Trump, we already don't have trouble with Trump, and we don't want to get into this one. But having that pressure on local MPs does make a difference. So I would encourage you to, even if you get frustrated and have trouble setting up meetings, well, go down there anyway, set up a pickup line. Have a joint letter that people can sign and you can go and deliver it, paste it on the windows, whatever, you know. But do that because it does make a difference. Whether or not the Canadian government can be moved into action, well, I think what we're seeing right around the world is that a lot of countries, not just imperialist countries, a lot of countries, even in the global south, countries who benefited from Cuba's assistance, have been slow to respond to this attack on Cuba. And one of the reasons is that people are really disoriented and worried about the impact that this is going to have in the United States and the orange flag south of the border, and what ramifications that might have for their countries. But they're starting to lose their fear. And you see more and more countries saying, okay, it's time to do something about Cuba. So we can do that in Canada, it's happening internationally, and on April 19th, which is a week from tomorrow, next Sunday, there's a National Day of Action that the CNC has called, and there's going to be actions in a whole number of parts of the country, not necessarily everywhere, but it's happening. Even spontaneously, groups are forming right across the country, even in small communities and towns. In Toronto, we're doing action on the 19th, but it's happening in Vancouver, and Ottawa, and Montreal, a whole number of cities across the country. And if we just keep this energy up and determination up, we are confident that the Cuban people will win. With our help, but certainly primarily in terms of their own abilities. Thank you very much.
So we'll have just one more guest speaker, and after that, we're just going to go over some local advocacy here in Canada, so that we can do together and some strategies and some things that we like to implement. So, Consul General of Cuba.
First of all, thank you so much for the invitation, Igor, and this initiative. I arrived to the country last November. I only have been here 5 months, but for me, it's been a very exciting experience and joy. Lovely people here, Canadian people that love and support the Cuban country and also respect my country. I'm not here because it was very touching, as the professor said before, a very touching documentary. I see that we said the consultania here, my wife also, we cried seeing that because it's not only that family. You can see this in many families in Cuba. It's not unique. And that such situation is provoked for the blockade, for the sanctions, for the pressure that USA put on many countries. And you say, Miguel also say a lot of important ideas. I want to repeat that. I'm not here to convince you that the blockade affected damage Cuba. You are very sure of that. Many of you have been in Cuba and have the opportunity to see the situation in the ground. But I think that my purpose here now in this speech is to let you know that and to give you positive things that are happening in Cuba right now, no? But despite this situation. Of course, from the January 29th of this year, I think that Cuban people are living an emergency, national emergency, because USA administration from blockade all the fuel that are coming to the country. They threat the country to put sanctions and restrictions if they export fuel to Cuba. As Miguel said, any country needs to fuel to run up the economy and also to provoke or to give the basic services, hospital, schools, seniors. But the learning that I see in this documentary, and I think that you also feel, that the Cuban families and people, despite the situation, despite the sadness and the lack of medicine and the lack of equipment, try also to find a solution and also try to survive and also try to be happy in that way and to thinking positive, not to move forward and to go and move on. We have to fight for their life. So we have the right as Cuban and human beings to fight for our life. And this is a message that I think that the Cuban government and Cuban people are trying to spread to the world during these 67 years of revolution. Where we have the right to choose our destiny, we have the right to live in peace, to create a normal life with our family, with our friends, to defend our sovereignty, to defend our independence. And also, it's very important, not only for us, not only for the Cuban country, not only for the Cuban people. It's a duty for it's a principle for our country and a responsibility. We feel as a responsibility as countries, the government also fight for the just causes across the world of the Palestinian cause. So any place with Venezuela also government to try to ask or demand the freedom of Maduro and his wife, and the Latin American countries. So as a region, we need to get together to face all the challenges that as a region we have. And also, it's important, and I think that we need to move as countries, as policies in the same way, to try to change the economic order that is ongoing today. Because this is my cause, and this is my country's problem. So there are very countries try sometimes very selfish, the government, some countries sometimes very selfish, and the capital, the money rules their lives today. So I think that we need to, as the Canadian people show every day, the normal Canadian people show every day, We need to work together, to work close, to be solidarity with the other one, to respect the other one. And this is the way that I think that we need to rule the world and the country. So right now, only some example that we are doing in Cuba, the government, the few resources that we have, of course, the little resources that we have. Fortunately, we received recently fuel from Russia. After 3 months, we have not received any fuel. My country with 3 months, we have not received any fuel. I think that is only that we can understand if you live in Cuba, because in every country maybe you collapse maybe 1 week or 2 weeks without receiving any fuel. And Cuba received 3 months. We received the fuel from Russia, and that resources, that fuel that we need to process now, we put, of course, in the critical sector. We are putting in the critical sector. Hospital, you say, as the most important sector. You see how many children needs equipment, and we of course need fuel and electricity to run out that equipment. So, and the public transportation also, because the doctors need to move to the hospital, to the polyclinic, or the doctor, nurses, or the medical staff, and also the patients need to go to the hospital. And the government are taking some measures to put the fuel in some transportation with that goal, to pick up the doctor, to move to the hospital, pick up the patient, and then come back to their homes. Also, we are trying to develop renewable energy, as you may be seeing. Of course, we are dealing with China to install solar panels, but also we have some resources, own resources in Cuba to change or to bring some other way to renewable energy. Also, we are taking some measures in the economic sector to be more efficient and productive. Recently, the Cuban government flexibilized some measures in order that if the foreign investment comes to Cuba, the Cuban people that live abroad now have the opportunity to be more involved in the economic sector in Cuba. And we never, and our president said many times during last months in every interview that he did not, we are not willing to surrender. We are not the capacity, or in our vocabulary, he said yesterday, in our vocabulary is not the word surrender. No. So we are continuing developing our country even in this condition, and we never refuse or we never deny the opportunity that we have to trade as a normal country with another one. So we are trying to look at new partners. We are trying to create collaboration, to build collaboration with the countries. Canada is an example in the bilateral relation. Canada is an example. We have 8 years of relationship, diplomatic relationship with Canada without gaps. I think that we need to protect and preserve this, and it's a responsibility for you, because you are a European, you are the Canadian citizen, but also, of course, for the Cuban embassy here. And I think that we can move on with Canada in many sense, and I hope that we can do. And the end, my final words is to say that I'm very proud to be here to represent my country, and to meet all of you, and have the opportunity to talk with you, to dialogue with you, and to work together. Because as Miguel said, there are many ideas and initiatives that we can do to work together to help Cuba, and also, as I said, not only Cuba, the other countries also. But in the case of Cuba, we receive every day we receive a lot of messages of love, a lot of supporting. People say what we can do to help Cuba in this moment. And our consular staff are involved in all the aids, the humanitarian aid that are sending to Cuba. We have the CNC, the Canadian, the organization of Alberto Gómez, Cuban organization in Toronto. We are helping each month to send at least a container with humanitarian aid to Cuba. And for me, I'm very grateful for that, and I feel very proud. And thank you so much. You are excellent people. You are very kind people, and I hope we will be here I will be here for 4 years from now, and I hope that we can work together, and I hope also that my country, the situation in my country, change in the good way. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was great. So, we're going to start off with just a few housekeeping things for those that have already been involved over the last few months. We try not to call too many meetings. We know everybody's busy, so we've launched like the advocacy campaign. We basically started a soft launch. Kevin had the letter to the editor printed in the Hamilton Spectator. You got feedback. We also got feedback because there were a couple donations started rolling in the next morning after it was published. And a few people reached out on what we can do. So we're trying to maintain dialogue with these people. I've also been interviewed twice with 93.3 FM, CFMU. Those interviews also became, were well received, and we're starting to get a little bit more interest in our organization. As a group, last week we decided that we're going to apply to join the CNC, so we just got the paperwork from the CNC. We're going to be submitting it shortly. We've just been quite busy with this event, as well as with the container. With finances, since our last meeting, which was about 6 weeks ago, we raised around $1,700 from those members that were at the meeting last time. We had one or two really big donations we're really grateful for, and also smaller ones trickling in. We've had a bit of good luck. We were struggling to get the medical supplies sent to Cuba first. First of all, when you order $1,000 over prescription medications, including stuff that's controlled, pharmacists asked some questions. We had to kind of do a little bit of extra paperwork, but we got it through, and then we had issues with getting customs, getting it sent in. And recently, with the flight stopping, air freight has come to a halt. But we looked at the Che Guevara Volunteer Brigade is leaving in, I believe, a week. Yeah, in 2 weeks. So they're going to be taking the supplies with them, and just by happenstance, they're actually visiting the hospital. Now we had originally intended to send the stuff to, so we basically saved a whole bunch of money on the air freight. It just took a little bit longer to get there. But yeah, the money that we saved is going to get rolled forward to put a deposit down for next year's fundraiser. We want to have the annual fundraiser in the fall as a flagship event. So the money that we saved is just going to get used for a deposit for the Workers' Art Heritage Center for September. The tentative date for that is September 26th. Workers' Art Heritage Center already has it free. We're just finalizing the application for the event. More info will come out. We're going to be selling those raffle tickets like last year. We're already getting more prizes than we did last year. So that event is going to be growing. Yeah, the money that we raised recently is going to be, we're going to be purchasing supplies and sending it by container. There's a group out of Toronto that is dispatching a container on the 25th. So everything that we've raised so far is going to go to that. If anybody wants to volunteer to come out and load, Saturday morning, 8 a.m., we're probably going to be renting a small U-Haul truck and go down. This group is much better organized than we are in the sense that they're much larger, we have larger resources. So, it takes, I think maybe I'll be able to correct me, it takes something like $12,000 to send a container to Cuba. So we're not there yet. That's what we want to strive for long term. But right now, we're working with them. They've set some room aside for us. So it's probably going to be a hell of a cost to run. We're just going to get a whole bunch of stuff, skid it up, and send it out. Yeah, that's it for us. As for advocacy, we've had a soft launch. Now we want to slowly turn it up. I think we have a really good opportunity here in Hamilton. We have 3 brand new members of parliament that are in government, 2 of which won by fairly narrow margins. We have a minority government, so there's always a risk of a snap election. If there's ever that we're going to get anything out of the immobilized clown car that is our House of Commons, it's probably right now when they're actually, feel the pressure to actually pay attention to their constituents. So with that in mind, somebody already pointed out, On the back of the program is the contact information for the 3 MPs that we think we have the best shot at, which is Hamilton Center, Hamilton Mountain, and Hamilton West. I know anybody that's following municipal politics knows that John Paul Danko is probably a gut, but it's worth a shot. If anything, just create the pressure. We're not expecting much from him, considering his track record in City Hall. But the other 2 are brand new. They won by short margins. We're going to slowly work towards having a meeting with them, but we want to build a groundswell of pressure for them. So we're asking everybody to email them, contact them. I've also included to CC in your emails, if you're emailing, the foreign minister and the prime minister's emails. So CC those, and then please DCC our email address so that we know that stuff's going out. But also, if you get any replies that are more than just thank you for your email or blah, 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 I'll discuss this with my colleagues. But if they're actually bringing up, some sort of conversation, please forward it to us. So that way, when we meet with them, we can already be ready to address any concerns or any ideas that they have. Like Canada has the capacity to help. Like our Navy has a logistics ship where one of the main reasons why the government justified getting it is foreign aid support, like disaster relief. It's designed to transport diesel and medical supplies. The last time I checked, it was on a marine parade in New Zealand. Basically, they have it on the other side of the Pacific for PR, you know what I mean, like just for waving the flag. There's definitely better uses for that ship that they could be doing than sending it to New Zealand. So we're hoping that we can get a meeting with the MPs, maybe create more pressure here in Hamilton. Beyond that, social media, we're going to be launching an Instagram page as well as a Facebook page, but also yourselves. Post stuff, post links to this, this documentary, which everybody in the room, like, there's a reason why I left, because I watched it before. I was setting up the show. I'm like, I'm not going through that twice in one weekend. I went to the other room. Send it to somebody. If somebody has doubts, if somebody's, even if you have that dumbass friend from high school that posts really silly stuff and they're, post a link to that in the comment section. You know what I mean? Like, we need to be actively, addressing this stuff and pushing, our narrative, forward. Other media as well. If you know anybody that writes for any media sources, also community groups or labor groups. If you're involved in your union or if you're involved in your church and you want your union local to make a donation, or maybe you can just pass a resolution locally that they can then submit to these MPs. But you're not comfortable answering all the questions. Like you're not comfortable going into their room. Contact us. We can arrange for somebody to come that maybe is more comfortable addressing any concerns other members in your union might have. On the fly, somebody that maybe is a little bit more knowledgeable about stuff that can kind of handle a little bit more questioning. Other social media, you never know anybody. Talk to your friends, talk to people you know. If you have somebody that, other hobbies, like we had this random breakthrough, and I'll bring it up because people mentioned here about Kevin mentioned, people getting back to him and this outpour, you never know where this support comes. Last year when we organized the events, it was my wife and I got financially backed up that event. It was very stressful because we had to put down all the deposits. We were struggling, and some people that pledged money were then not returning their calls. And out of the blue, one of our relatives happens to be a Twitch streamer. I don't know if anybody knows what Twitch is, but it's a video gaming site where you blog podcasts. And she just runs a bi-weekly show. And she's like, oh, this is cool. Send me some pictures, give me info. And she managed in 2 weeks to raise more money than a lot of these union locals that pledge money and then basically ghosted us. She paid for the rent for the Workers' Heritage Center from her stream. And all it was is she has a big audience. She posted pictures of our previous trips to Cuba and dropping off medical supplies. And her audience was like, wow, this is awesome. Where do I send the e-transfer to? And, sometimes you never know where you can find the support. And there's a lot more of it. I've had people contact me in the last 2 weeks that I have no idea had any political inclination. And you're like, dude, that's totally, what can I do? What can I help? So we need to explore all avenues.
The taxi driver there let me out of his car on the way here unless I let him come on brigade with these guys.
Yeah.
People are excited just to hear this stuff.
Exactly. There's a lot of people that it's sometimes difficult to talk politically because you never know, especially with you know, strangers. You don't know what kind of reaction you're going to get. You're not sometimes even comfortable with your own ideas, and you're not fully comfortable being challenged, like on your beliefs. But you have to do it because like. The people that know the least are usually the loudest, especially on social media, and we do need to counter that. So, yeah, if you have any ideas, if you know anybody, writers for SPEC or any other, contact us. If you're not comfortable writing something yourself, but you have a contact, please let us know. Yeah, that's all we have for that. Is there any questions?
Just wondering about Venezuela. What's happening now? They stopped talking Cuba.
It's looking like it. It's looking like it. I mean, like honestly, like our own government, like the amount of aid that our government has pledged to Cuba compared to Ukraine would be around there. Like it would be, you know, like a miscount. Everybody is afraid of doing something. Nobody, you know. I'm sure our MPs are going to say, well, we're negotiating these free trade agreements with the US. We don't want to rock the boat. Well, so what? Like we have the capacity, and we're a sovereign country. And like this is a sovereignty issue. We're allowed to be friends with who we want to be friends with. Nobody else should be telling us who our friends are and who our enemies are. We decide that for ourselves. And that's the way we need to frame it. And there's a lot of pushback now with Trump with the threats of annexation jokes. There's a lot of like middle road Canadians that are like growing this kind of resentment. And I think that's something that we can really play on, saying like, hey, you know, we're Canadians, we pick our own friends, we pick our own allies. And if we want to be friends with Cuba, then we're going to be friends with Cuba. And that's an argument that we can really make. Yeah.
Thanks for that one, Igor. I was going to say the other thing as well that I find helpful when I'm talking to people, especially if they do the whole like, oh, the problem is because Cuba's communist. Is to sort of say, similar to what's going on in Iran, I had this conversation a lot, I said, listen, you know what? Just because you think that a country shouldn't be subject to illegal aggression from the world's rogue superpower, doesn't mean you have to embrace everything about that government, doesn't mean you have to like, it just be like Canada here, we have problems with our own government. Would we want the US to come in and overthrow it? I mean, just to have that conversation with people, I find is really helpful to sort of be like, listen, Cubans, like every other people in the world, should have the ability to decide their own, like you said, sir, your own destiny, your own government, how you want to live, right? And so just to sort of say that, you know, supporting the people of Cuba doesn't necessarily mean you're like endorsing X, Y, or Z, like you're supporting the people's right to sovereignty, which every single human being has, right?
Absolutely.
And sorry, just for the advocacy towards like our MPs,
yeah.
Is it surrounding with like aid and taking a political stance? Like, what is the goal?
Yes, I think the step one should be material aid.
Yeah.
Just because it'll have like an instant impact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that one ship that arrived from Russia changed, you know, the paradigm, that changed the conversation in Cuba drastically. Like now imagine if, you know, we have our logistics supply ship, instead of being in the Pacific, show up in Cuba and deliver enough diesel to run every backup generator in every hospital, you know, for a month. The kind of conversation even the Cubans can have with the United States when they're not under such pressure is already makes it so I think material aid, and I'll touch on this a little bit more, should be like priority, just kind of put out the fire, and then also like the political, where our government should be speaking out more and you know, asserting itself in this situation.
Yeah, I was just saying, if folks are interested in lobbying, and especially kind of those two target MPs, Lisa Hefner and Congressman Rana, we obviously have our dealing with limited capacity, as Igor said, but we could organize a lobby training day, just so everyone's talking points are unified, just the nature of talking to a member of parliament and how to make sure that they actually give you some sort of response rather than running around in circles as they like to do in those meetings. So if people aren't comfortable, you know, going out of their way and lobbying without, you know, any more concrete background information or talking points, I think we could.
Yeah, and we can do it on Zoom. Like
yeah, it's easy enough. Zoom here, hybrid.
Yeah, like weeknight or something like that for an hour. I just want to leave off on like a more positive note because a lot of stuff was pretty heady. There's a couple things that I noticed in the video that kind of made, brought me back. One of the ladies there, she was struggling because of the cost and the availability of dexamethasone. So in those bags, there's 500 adult doses of dexamethasone. In those bags, there's 1,000 doses of adult doses of antibiotics. There's tranexamic acid. There's endotracheal fluids. All those things are going to have an impact. In 3 weeks, they're going to be on the ground, and they're going to be making a difference. And that came from everybody that came out in last fall, and everybody that's donating. That's something that we can do on the regular, and it's going to have an impact. For somebody that's actually been to a hospital in Cuba and has actually talked to nurses and directors at a hospital in Cuba, it makes an impact on the ground, and it makes an instant one. Like I still remember when we were dropping stuff off, and like we had this lady that was helping us translate, but she wasn't like super fluent in English, so it's partially like sign language, and like we're taking stuff out of the bags and showing the directors either giving us a thumbs up or like and we took out 2 boxes of sutures, and he gives 2 thumbs up. He gave it to the head nurse. She took it under her arm and she was gone. And through the translator, we said like those are going to be used today because the stuff that you guys just brought up is better quality than we can source from some other place. So like that already made an impact like within hours of the stuff coming out the bag. So we can make an impact. So thank you very much for all those that donated. We've had a lot of donations come in the last few weeks. We really appreciate it. We're completely volunteer run. Like the only expenses is food or something like that. We really appreciate it, and we're going to have everything documented, and we'll post it online, and we'll also send it out. If you're not on the mailing list yet, please sign up. That way we can keep you posted on what we're doing. The email is actually on the back of the program.
So if you want to make a donation, we just email you.
Don't email me, email that address, and that there's an actual bank account for the Cuba Solidarity Association of Hamilton.
Physical.
Like an e-transfer.
It's very well.
Yeah, the transfer, auto deposit, it'll take a couple minutes.
Sorry? Yeah, then email us, and then we can arrange for pickup. I believe there's medical supplies leaving on the 25th as well, so they can get added to that to the shipment that's going out. But yeah, we have a separate account that's just for the organization. Myself and Aaron are the traders, and everything that goes into that account gets put to use. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your generosity. So there's still a little bit of food there. Please help clean up and have fun.